shouldn't a homosexual couple be allowed to adopt a child when the alternative is the child will be left abandoned? And I've gotten this question in various forms over the years. And here's the two scenarios that I'm usually presented with. They'll say scenario one is the child is abandoned and eventually put in an institution. And at that institution, they're oftentimes neglected, physically abused, and sexually abused. So that's scenario one. Scenario two is that the child is adopted by a loving lesbian couple who has a single family home. They have a large backyard that's fenced in. They have stable jobs. They're well educated. They have lots of family around in the neighborhood. And so then I'm asked, well, Alan, given those two scenarios, scenario one and two, which would be better for the child? Now, of course, given those two alternatives, yeah, of course, who would argue that it wouldn't be better for the child to be with a loving lesbian couple? Obviously, it would be much better that they would be with them than rather be in an institution where the child is abused physically and sexually and in other ways, just treated horribly. So what does that prove? Does that prove that we should have a policy that homosexuals should be able to adopt? No, it doesn't prove that. Why not? Well, because we don't make policy, we don't make public policy based on the exceptions or based on extreme cases. So for example, you might be able to argue that it would be morally permissible to run a red light in order to get your son or daughter to a hospital if they happen to be bleeding, and if you don't get them to the hospital within the next 5 or 10 minutes, they'll bleed to death. Okay? So you might say, yeah, it was permissible for you to run those red lights. So does that mean that we should make running red lights a policy for the public, that they should be able to do that? No, of course not. And the reason is because we don't make public policy based on exceptions to the rule. The real question we want to ask then is, if the child needs to be adopted, what would be the best situation for them to be adopted into? Would it be that they would be adopted by a heterosexual couple or a homosexual couple, given all things being equal? Okay, so not taking these two cases and making extreme cases on either way, but rather saying all things being equal, which is better for a child to be adopted by heterosexuals or by homosexuals? And when it comes to this question, notice the question is focused on the needs of the child, not on the wants of homosexual couples who obviously have a vested interest in seeing homosexual adoption being permitted in our country. Now, when this question is asked, I think it's self-evident that any time you have homosexual adoption, a child will be denied either their mother or their father or both, in every instance in which a homosexual couple adopts a child. And we have literally decades of research in social science and medicine and in sociology and all sorts of places that show that children do best when they're raised by their mother and their father, in a long-term monogamous relationship, of course. But they're best served when they're raised by a mother and a father. And so if we know that that's what's best for them, we would make a policy based on what we know to be best and ideal for children. And this is, by the way, why I would argue even that single people should not be allowed to adopt. It'd be for the same reason. Because a mother or a father by themselves is not as ideal as a situation in which you have a father and a mother together. And so again, we're basing our public policy decisions not based on exceptions to the rule, but rather on the general principle that we know serves the needs of children best.